Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of What Fulfills You. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And for today's solo episode, I'm diving into a topic that I know I wish I had throughout my college years, throughout my 20s, and I'm still in my 20s, but I think this is a topic that is not addressed enough, particularly for women, because I do think that this occurs differently for us gals than for men. And that is surrounding the topic of friendships, and particularly the friendships that did not work out or had some sort of falling out. And I know looking back in the years or times or moments that I've had a friendship falling out, or just, it not, or it maybe I would frame it as like when it surprisingly went a certain way. The way I got through those moments was being able to talk about it with another girlfriend and or hearing from other women that also experienced it before, because that reminded me that this experience is normal and that it is just part of life, and that it is not something to do with me, and it's not a personal thing, that just it's the nature of life that this will happen. And I can say, even looking back on breakups or anything that is very life-changing in some shape or form, whether it's minor or major, I just know that hearing other people also go through it and talk about it and acknowledge the normalcy of it made me feel more understood. So I hope that this can resonate with you guys, especially if this is something you've recently navigated or you have in the past, or just in general. I hope that this can be that for you. So when I was reflecting on friendships for me that didn't work out, there were about 4 in particular that really stood out to me. One of them now was like a little more than 5 years ago. That one was probably the most noteworthy, and it's kind of crazy to think how that was a little over 5 years ago, because it felt longer than that. And 5 years, when I say it out loud, doesn't actually sound like a long time. Like, I remembered this back in October 2020. And I remember when I called my college best friend, telling her, because I was obviously kind of sad about it. It was also like the first time I really, really ever went through a friendship falling out, so to speak, because it was so bizarre. Like, there was no indication as to why this happened. Like, there was no tension, no falling out, no fight, no argument, nothing. And then I remembered that this person had done this action to me before, and I guess it's so long ago, so I don't mind really talking about it, but this person had essentially ended our friendship by blocking me on social media completely out of the blue. Again, nothing ever pointed towards there being a point of tension. In fact, the last message I had sent to that person was about seeing Post Malone in this restaurant, because this person really likes Post Malone. So we had briefly talked about it. It was really funny, very light. And then a few weeks later, this person blocked me. And so all that to say, at that time in my life, I took it personally. I thought it was a reflection of something about me, something that I did wrong. And as an empath, as someone that is empathetic and compassionate towards other people, so oftentimes, like, maybe even to a little bit of a fault. And what I mean by that is it's where I can sometimes consider another person more than I'm considering myself. And that is something I have recognized through conversations with friends, through therapy, through my own confusion and being able to see what is contributing to that confusion. And something my dear friend Ronnie would tell me, it's like, Emily, you are a compassionate person, right? Like, give yourself credit for that. But you have to remember that Emily loves Emily too. And in fact, that is the most important love and compassion you should give, which is to yourself. And so that's a big one that I highlight in my notes, which is to learn to not take it personally. People's way of treating others is a reflection of their own capacity and what they know, not what they actually think of you. And I get it. A lot of people say that. I know most of us probably have heard about that at some point, but it is true. It makes so much sense to me, and I also recognize that about myself in the way I treat other people is a reflection of my own capacity. I've obviously matured a lot over the years, and so it's why I practice what I preach. If I talk about communication or having a hard conversation, I practice that in my own private life. I practice bringing up something that's uncomfortable with friends or whoever. I practice open dialogue. I practice telling people, hey, I actually don't quite understand that. Can you help me understand? And when I was early on in college, I was probably a lot more petty. I was probably doing things, I don't know, probably unfollowing on social media or maybe not addressing the thing, right? Like I just was avoiding it. And again, that's a reflection of my own capacity. Like me unfollowing a person when I was a petty 19-year-old was not really about the other person. It was just my lack of ability to handle my emotions and how I'm feeling and the deeper thing that I'm feeling too, right? Like the stuff that we do is surface level. There's something deeper that is causing us to think and feel this way. And so when I look at my own approach, when I look in reverse about how I would approach things, I think of, okay, if I don't want to remain friends with someone, what do I usually do or what do I do? I can't say that I've often really had to fully talk about ending a friendship, but if it really had to come to that, like if someone asked me, hey, what's going on? Or hey, I noticed like we're distant or something, as hard as this would be, I know deep down that I would communicate with the person and I would be also extremely gentle and respectful about indicating an end to the friendship, but leaving it with a positive remark. And I would say I've been able to be this way at least for the past few years now, but it's growing to this point. It's learning, it's having the self-awareness of where am I at? What am I doing? How could I be better? And also reflecting on what's been done to me, right? Like again, I mentioned that I am more of a deeply empathetic person. And so learning to not take it personal when people treat me a certain way has also helped me in my growth. And it has also helped me recognize what I would want to do differently, what I would want on the receiving end. That's kind of, right, going back to the empathy thing. And I think this is also a great place to also reflect on how you've shown up for other people or in times of friendship falling out or whatever similar things that may have happened. How do you handle that, right? And would you agree that the way you handled it, whether it's a way that you feel proud of it or you look back and you're like, oh, I really didn't handle it that well, do you recognize it as your own capacity, not actually the other person? And of course, if this is something going on recent in your life, it might take some time to really recognize this, but with time, especially in my personal examples, all of them have been, more than 2, 3 years. So I have enough time and space to really see it for what it is. And I think most of them I was able to recognize it within a year. So it didn't take that long. But I think, yeah, with time, you can really recognize and give grace to people, especially if you're usually on the receiving end. I'd say that for myself as well. You recognize that it is people, it's their own capacity. And through my practice with mindfulness, it has helped me be more compassionate and understanding towards those people. And all I can do is hope that they are able to grow into a person that would handle future scenarios, such as a friendship falling out or something, just to handle that with more compassion. To switch gears a little bit, I want to touch on the importance of knowing your core values and your core principles, and to take a moment to reflect on what those are for you. The reason why I bring this up is because this also helped me recognize how and why certain people couldn't remain in my life and why certain people are still in my life, especially for a long amount of time. And that always came back to core values. For me, I would say my top three are integrity, thoughtfulness, and honesty. I don't really know if thoughtfulness is a value, but regardless, it's something that I could pinpoint. Okay, this is what I embody. This is certainly what my closest friends embody, the people in my circle. And this is why I have not run into certain scenarios with people that are active in my life, that are really close with me, right? And then I look at the people that I have had falling out with, or that I had very short-lived friendships. And I have thought deeply about what could their core values be? How do they actually show up, maybe in times of conflict or in times of like, not so comfortable moments with a friend? How do they actually show up? And going back to my first example, the one from more than 5 years ago. But when I look back to the friendship I had with that person, I remember that they did this before, that they actually did this blocking thing with me and then like unblocked me. It was very strange. It's so long ago now that I don't remember the details, but all I remember is that I didn't have the capacity or maturity to bring it up to them and to ask them what's going on or what happened. I simply let it go without any dialogue about it because I don't know, I just didn't know how to address it. And also, I probably at the time I was like, this happened first when I was like 19, I think, or 20. So when it happened, I wanted to give the person benefit of the doubt. I wanted to probably appease the person. I wanted to, like I just wanted to keep the peace in a way. And that also, again, it showed me that this was not a one-time thing. This happened more than once in terms of how this person handles situations, which is obviously with a lack of open communication, dialogue, kind of like a lack of thoughtfulness or compassion or empathy for the other person. And I just know my own friends right now, like they wouldn't do that, or even when I've asked certain friends, how would you handle a situation like this? They've all shared that they would address it. They would talk about it despite the discomfort, and I've seen them do that too. That's the thing. I've seen them do this, not just talk about it. And so when I have learned how to internalize like what my values are and how I show it through my relationships and how it shows up through my close friendships as well, that's given me peace too. It's given me peace knowing that it's okay. As much as I wish these people shared more of these values with me, they simply don't, and it doesn't make them a bad person. And I want to make that very clear too, because you don't have to make people in your head the bad guy or the bad person or even resentment. I don't resent any of the people that I'm past friends with, to be honest. It's just more that I realize how there's very little to overlap on, especially on a deep level. Like if we can't even overlap on shared values, I'm not really sure how the friendship would maintain anyways, And so I think that's a unique neutral way to look at it is just actually recognizing on a deeper level how even if you didn't have a falling out, or even if, there was nothing major like my scenario, it's a good open-ended question of, okay, how long would this person actually stay in your life, right? And why? And if it's short-lived, is it in part because of the lack of shared values anyways? And I think this is also a great frame to use with romantic relationships too. I think it's so important to recognize that previous relationships, you don't have to look at people in a bad light. I know not everyone does, and I certainly don't, but I know some people do, right? Sometimes it's easier to look at people or frame them in your head as like a bad guy or like a toxic person or whatever. And look, to be fair, sometimes I'm sure there are elements of that in some people, and you always have to take it with a grain of salt too. Like when if someone is telling you about their previous partner and they're like, oh, they were this kind of person or an XYZ, always take it with a grain of salt because sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's in the middle. But at the end of the day, you don't do yourself any service by thinking of someone in a negative light. Like, yes, it's a nice short-term effect. Like you can make someone a villain in your head, but at the end of the day, the truth is if they share and act and embody on the same values as you do, it would be a lot more simple. Like you would be able, like I can even say this on something as basic as politics. Someone that has different political views as me, I know many people where I can have really solid conversations with them because at baseline, our core values are the same, but we just probably disagree on a different approach to get there, you know? And on top of that, when you are respectful and you share that core value of, hey, I just want to understand you and think of you rather than, oh, I want to be right. That's how we agree to disagree. That's how I get along with people that have different, let's say, political views as me, because that's such like a common area in life to have stronger disagreements on, right? But if I can see that I can still get along with people very well that have different political views as me, it goes deeper than that. And so I think that's how I try to go about life too, is to not carry so much heaviness in my heart and in my mind about other people. And I just try to focus on myself, my core values, how I show up and how I embody it, because I've shared it on a previous episode. But when you show up in a certain way and you're embodying your values, people with different values are going to be scared. They are going to repel you, right? And that's a good thing. So I think it's actually quite nice when you experience this and you can see firsthand what it looks and feels like to not match up well with someone because at a fundamental level, there are different values and different ways to embody those values. And to wrap up this episode, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but as you navigate friendship falling out or friendship distancing or any kind of confusion that maybe you haven't fully processed yet about friendships that didn't really continue or didn't really continue to flourish, I would encourage you to look at your closest friends now and ask yourself, what are the differences? And I actually answered this myself. So I will share this from my point of view. And maybe this can help kind of give you some ideas on what I mean by like, what are those differences? Like, for example, when I look at my core circle of people in my life, I know number one, they would communicate with me if something is off. They would communicate with me if something I did or said or whatever, if something bothered them. And they would also communicate whatever that is with respect and love. They wouldn't avoid it or get petty like I would have in college, you know? And again, there's a very distinct difference between me at 19 to me in my mid late 20s, right? So I can give grace to people that I get it. Like, I don't judge, or I'm not gonna quote unquote look down on people that might still act a certain way. But I think that's something that's worthwhile to take note of is when I look at people in my life right now, we're all equals in the sense that we all show up at baseline very similarly. And if someone were to act petty with me and do petty things, and I've again been on the receiving end plenty of times on that, we just don't end up staying friends. Like, it just doesn't really work out with someone like me who is going to want to have a dialogue, who is going to want to understand where they're coming from. And on the flip side, out of respect for myself, I am also going to want to be understood. And that is something that I can actually say about my closest friends. Like, they would do that for me. And funny enough, I look at one of my dear friends who I met during like COVID era, and she's actually like 9 years older than me. But something she said to me the other week, after we were like talking about a deep topic, she's actually from Denmark, but I met her in Los Angeles. She followed up to a message and said, like, apologizing, and she didn't need to, but she took ownership of where she was falling short in our friendship, and she took ownership of how life kind of moves fast, and it's easy for her to forget or not stay in touch and, overlook messages, and she apologized for it. And look, she does have more life experience than me, and she is older than me, so one might be like, okay, that's a given, she'd be more mature. I don't really necessarily look at it like that, although obviously, yes, I can't hold a 19-year-old, right? Like, at the same standard as someone who is 27, for example. But I think two things that I remember feeling from seeing that message is number one, I felt, wow, I'm so grateful to have a friend that just goes out and tells me this, even though I didn't really feel that from her. Like, I didn't feel like she was falling short, but for her to express that and acknowledge that to me was so like, wow, I feel really thought of. I feel really appreciated by this friend, but also I felt a lot of respect and admiration for her approach because I was like, okay, wow, she was showing me what I can do for other people as well. She was giving me what I call like a domino effect of when you lead with a certain energy or a certain approach, other people will often follow, especially if it's great leadership. So, what she was doing for me was showing me how to be a great friend, how to be more thoughtful towards others. And it's friends like that that has helped me grow, that has helped me become better, that has helped me see, oh, okay, this is something I could also be just as thoughtful too, you know? And so it's so beautiful to have friends in different stages of life, different ages, different life experiences. I'm so grateful that the universe, God, whoever gave me all of that. And I think if you are struggling in any shape or form with navigating these friendship difficulties, I hope that some of the things I shared on this episode gave you a good starting point for self-reflection and for better understanding why things are the way they are and why certain people didn't stay in your life. And ultimately, everything I shared can be applied to pretty much any friendship, relationship. But I would say my core focus here today was to focus on platonic friendships and female friendships as a whole because it is common, much more common than we talk about. And I think it's important to recognize while it's common, it also doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the person or there's anything wrong with you. It's just that you are on different frequencies and you likely have different values. And because of that, it's hard to really be on the same wavelength, and it's okay. It's okay, and look, on the flip side, sometimes a friendship falling out happens because you did fall short. Maybe you didn't really show up as a friend, and maybe that is on you, or vice versa. Maybe it really is on the other person. Maybe there is something distinct that they did that just didn't enable you to keep that friendship going, and that's also okay too, right? It's just about being able to honestly recognize that with yourself and take that as a gift and a lesson to move forward in your life. I hope this episode was helpful and insightful. And as always, if you enjoyed this topic and this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Please let me know. DM me on Instagram at Emily E. Duong or at What Fulfills You. If you are not subscribed yet, please be sure to follow the show on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you again for tuning in. I would chat with you all in the next episode.